division. Projected win totals, AFC South. This is one of my favorite overs. So the Texans at 9.5, Colts, Jags 7.5 wins, the Titans at 5.5. Bet the over. Brian Callahan, listen, he was so frustrated. Will Levis arguably gave 3 wins away last year. So Cam Ward, there's just not going to be, nobody's going to quite know what to do until he has an off season. Remember C.J. Stroud came in, and it kind of feels like everybody's kind of waiting for C.J. Stroud to fall apart, and he didn't. So I think Cam Ward, the upgrade, Cam Ward to Will Levis, is going to get you to 7 or 8 or 9 wins in this division.
Okay, let's talk about this. He now, moves on to the next division. I want to talk about this from a Texans perspective because you can see that they're favored to win 9.5. And if we go through some of these other teams, the Ravens, 11.5, the Bills, 11.5, the Chiefs are 11.5, the Eagles are 11.5, right? You can see all the division winners, 11.5. And yet you have the Texans. And again, these are in like good, decent divisions where at least you have to play the Commanders. The Commanders obviously went to the NFC Championship game. The Broncos and the Chargers, both playoff teams, and the Raiders should be better, even though it only says that they're 6.5. And you're going up against the Colts, the Jaguars, and the Titans. Titans don't even have a quarterback. I know they're going to get Cam Ward, but whatever. Trevor Lawrence hasn't been able to stay healthy, and now they got a new coach. And the Colts is like Daniel Jones or AR, like who's it going to be, right? Last year it was like Flacco too. Like, what do you got? And you have the Texans, favored to win 9.5. I mean, the Ravens have to go against the Bengals and the Steelers, who say what you will about the Steelers, but they still always find a way to win at least, 9, 10, 11 games or so. But if you're a Texans fan, like, this should frustrate you a bit because, like, I believe CJ Stroud's awesome, and I believe that they were on track to really build something special. They then made some interesting decisions this offseason so far, and I'm not necessarily saying that they're the wrong decisions. It's just you'd like to see this team, especially when you have a young quarterback on his rookie deal, obviously, and had such an awesome year his first year. Took a little bit of a step back. I don't see him really having a sophomore slump or like a true step back. I think this team was kind of messy. I think the coordinating was messy. I think the injuries were just too much to overcome and tough for a young coordinator. That has been my main conclusion of that season. You have a bad O-line. You have a coordinator who was not able to really manage all of the injuries, which is it's a hard thing to do. Quite frankly, you definitely need to be a more experienced offensive mind to really be able to feel more comfortable having certain weapons in and out of the lineup, especially with a bad O-line. And then that's how you get the year that CJ Stroud had. But like, you would like to feel like, if you remember last offseason, there was just over the moon momentum and optimism that the Texans were going to be like a true bona fide top team. I just watched a clip recently the other night where John Middlecoff was kind of talking about, like, he was like saying that, he thought the Texans were going to be the number 1 seed last year, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought so too. I thought they were going to, I was going to be like AFC conference, I'm not going to say that you have to win the AFC championship game, but I was like, that's kind of what you're looking to get there, right? Like that's what you are. And I was looking at CJ Stroud as an MVP candidate, et cetera, et cetera. And it obviously did not unfold that way. And now you're looking at this next year and you want to see yourself be able to take a step forward. And you're not in a situation where you're like, oh, well, we actually really have a bad quarterback and we overpaid him. And now we got to fire our head coach. And we're in this like weird, twisted situation, right? Like kind of like the Dallas Cowboys, quite frankly. You're not in that situation. And then to essentially build a team, excuse me, as I'm sneezing on the truth, you're to build a team that is essentially projected to be like, they're pretty good. Like, you're taking advantage of a bad division, 7.5, 7.5, 5.5. And again, I'm not saying that I 100% agree with these projections. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter until the draft, but it's off season. We're having fun with these types of conversations, so let's just do it. But there should be a frustration factor. And I really encourage Texans fans to not just do the automatic, oh, everyone's doubting us, or just wait until next year, or this or that. Like, I think it's fair to kind of really take a second to be like, what went wrong, what needs to go right, and what decisions need to be made where we can actually regain ourselves, regain momentum and really solidify ourselves as like a legitimate true top team and not a team that's just making the playoffs because you're going up against a quarterbackless Colts. The Jaguar, Trevor Lawrence is now on his third head coach. And the Titans, they had Will Levis out there, right? It just, winning the division means nothing, quite frankly. Winning 9 games when you have a quarterback like CJ Stroud should also be considered like nothing, right? Like it should be like your floor should be 9 games year in and year out. And so you're going to be on your 3rd year now with CJ Stroud, who looked like he was set up to take over the NFL, and he didn't. And now it's clearly not being projected to take over the NFL in year 3 either. So it's like, how do we get there? How do we get there? Even when comparing the other division, the other divisional winners, it's just like clearly seen as a couple games below them, not on the level of the Bills, not on the level of the Eagles, not on the level of the Chiefs, Ravens, etc. And it's just it's worth considering, especially when you're going up against a bad division, a division that you should be, even if Cam Ward ends up being this awesome quarterback, he's still a rookie, still a first year, you have an awesome defensive head coach, great defensive head coaches, or great defensive coordinators for that matter, notoriously just expose and just get after young rookie quarterbacks. Like that's like, that's always been a thing, whether it's Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, whoever. And so it's just like, so those should still be wins, even if Cam Ward truly ends up being a transcendent quarterback. Like, shouldn't necessarily be against the Texans in year 1, right? Like it just shouldn't be. And so, quite frankly, same thing with the Colts, because it's like Daniel Jones either needs to relearn how to play football, or like AR just needs to learn how to play football. So like, I don't know. I don't have a strong sense of who the Texans will be next season, and I don't even have any strong predictions personally. I'm definitely just going to wait and see what the draft looks like, who they get, and yeah, they're definitely more of a wait and see team for me more than anything. I still am a firm believer in CJ Stroud. But last season they just never looked right. Ironically, 2 of the teams that I had really high hopes for were CJ Stroud and the Texans and Jordan Love and the Packers. And for different reasons, they had very similar seasons where it was like, it just doesn't look right. Even when they win, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look connected. It doesn't look like that they're playing high level football. Even when they win, even if they win by a healthy margin, it's still just, it just didn't feel good. And I made videos like talking about that, and a lot of Texas fans were angry. They're like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about." And it came back to them. Even looking at that game against the Kansas City Chiefs, like, that was technically a winnable game. That was a game that they could have won, and it was bad coaching, bad decision making, bad coordinating. And to me, it was so highlighted when they rushed to get to the line. I think it was 4th down, and it was just like you left CJ Stroud on an island where you got to the line of scrimmage late for whatever reason, and rather than just call, and it was at a key moment of the game, rather than just call a timeout and say, okay, we didn't want to burn a timeout, but this is important, they just quickly were like, no, quickly get to the line, call hike, and CJ Stroud just like, oh my god, calls hike, and then it was just a nothing play, a disaster play, and it was like, yep. That's bad coaching, and you have a 2nd-year quarterback, right, going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, like going up against a great defense and a great coordinator, and Patrick Mahomes on the other side of the ball. Like, you got to be more organized. You got to have a better culture. You got to coach better. You got to protect your young 2nd-year quarterback. Like, that's what you need to do. And to me, that play, and again, I forget exactly what that play was, or I think it was the 4th quarter, definitely the second half. It's just like that highlighted just the collection of issues that went on throughout that whole season. And, in a way, that's kind of how you get a projected win total of 9.5, but it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that. And so it's just like, I'm in the process now of trying to figure out why is that and how is it no longer that. So definitely open to your guys' thoughts on that one. So definitely let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.